Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of Incendiary. Glad you could be with us for our debate show. Tonight's show, as the banner said, is Every Story Has Already Been Written. We'll talk about what that means for our debate in just a few minutes. I want to say first, say hi to thanks to the panel. Hey Jake, thank you for being here.
Hey man, thanks. Great to be back.
Yeah, we missed you last week. Glad you're here this week. And Bandito's with us too. Hey Bandito.
Hail and well met. How are we doing today?
We're doing all right. I'm trying to keep it a little quiet tonight, but yeah, we're doing good. With us tonight, we have 20-year industry veteran. He's been published in a number of the big comic book companies that I'm sure you've heard of. But currently, his campaign is T-Bird Throttle versus the Ape Men, which is like the second story arc. The first one was versus the Moon Men. A great storyline we'll talk about when we get to the campaign. But first, of course, let's bring him on and get our debate started. And his name is Josh Howard. Thanks for being here, Josh.
Josh Howard,
how are you?
Can't hear us. Can't hear him.
Uh-oh.
I don't think he can hear us.
I think not.
Technical difficulty.
We had a similar situation last week with our guest.
Wonder if there's anybody.
Well, we can hear you.
Do we want to drop out and come back in?
Yeah, let's see if we can have him do that. I will.
Which would be a fantastic suggestion if he could hear us giving it.
Right. I'm going to go to Twitter and.
Is he already doing it himself, or did you boot him?
Oh, he must be already doing it himself.
Well, okay, we can just be quiet. It's all right.
Can you hear us now, Josh?
I can hear you now.
Oh, excellent.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
first of all, thanks for being
helped
here.
my anxiety a whole lot.
We had Jake doing a little game show theme while we were waiting. So we have with us in the chat.
Because I'm the only person on camera.
You can do whatever you want. You're the guest.
Yep.
All right. There we go.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh.
We make it all about the guest, so that that's why we weren't on camera. But yeah, whatever you're most comfortable with is fine. I see that in the chat we have Aries is with us. Aries, he is one of the artists on one of my books. I'm gonna keep what he's drawing right now a secret because I'm trying to come up with one of those project names for it so that it sounds real fancy. We'll see how that goes. Let's take this now to Bandito to set us up.
Well, Josh, as you know, we're going to be debating on our topic, and the topic is every story has already been written. And I'll pass it over to Jake to, let us know how it gets set up.
All right, cool. So, Josh, since you are the guest, you get to choose which side of the debate you want to take part in. So, with every story has already been written, do you believe that every story has already been written? And if not, you can take that side. So, which side do you choose right off the bat?
I don't feel strongly either way, but I'm going to go with has been written. Every story has been written.
Every story has been written. Ooh, all right. All right. So he chose violence today. Okay. So, all right. Since that is your side of the debate you want to take on, now what's left over is myself, Bandito, and Brian, Dojo Kun, to be the ones to debate the side that not every story has been written. So if whoever you choose that you want to debate you,
well, he can pick a partner. We can give the guest the advantage and have a 2 against 1 in his favor.
Okay, cool. So who do you want to be your partner, Josh?
I mean, I don't even know you guys, so I don't know. I'll just I guess
no pressure.
Dojo Kun. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Ooh. Dojo and Josh versus the reigning team, Bionic Bra and Smiling Bandito.
It might have been good for him to know that part too.
Okay.
I see that with us we have Jay Williams, who does think every story has been told, but everyone has a unique expression of that storyline. Thanks for being here, Jay.
Jay just won the argument for us.
I know, right?
And we also have Finatra with us. Hey, that's the first time we've seen Finatra in
Hey,
chat.
Finatra.
Thanks for
Great
being
to
here,
see
man.
him. Yeah.
Oh, and happy birthday, KSSS.
It's good that you remembered, Dojo.
I know, right? It's always his birthday. All right. So, so it's going to be
Jay
2-on-1.
Jay can double up as host a little bit, so he can direct
right.
the conversation as we go.
All right. All right, Josh. Well, since you are the guest, we'll let you go ahead and tip us off here and take the reins.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some kind of list, right? That someone's assembled this all the story types, right?
Christopher Booker was the guy.
I'm not sure how many there are. What is it, like 9?
Well, he said 7.
Seven.
I guess I'll be on your side for a little bit here too. He said that there was 7. There was Overcoming the Monster, Rags to Riches, the Quest, Voyage and Return, Comedy, Tragedy, Rebirth. And in the Rags to Riches, he did break that down into 2 extra ones where it's there's like a hollow victory at the end, where it's kind of like the Dumb and Dumber idea, where at the end of it they could have been rich, they could have had this amazing ending where they got to get on the bus with all these super hot women and lather suntan lotion over them all summer long, and they were too stupid to follow through with it. So they have a hollow victory. I mean, they did the right thing, they returned the money, but in the end, they are still just a couple of schlebs walking on the side of the road. And then, of course, the absolute failure, where they tried their hardest and hopefully got some life lessons out of it, but ultimately are just back to square one. So there's those caveats to those plots. But yes, so he created the list. Back to your point.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that variation has been, as far as those goes, has been told, of course, but I think it's the perspective of the writer that changes, but the bones of the stories are essentially the same, I would say.
Well, I mean, the bones can be like the structure of the story, but I mean, it's the layout, the journey to get to the end that really makes the story, resonate with the audience or your reader. So technically, even though the bones might be the exact same structure, the essence of it can be completely different, which on this side of the argument makes it a completely different story altogether.
Well, it depends on what you're finding as story. I mean, is story, the final result, or is the story the structure? Is it come down to how we're defining terms? I
mean, if we're doing that kind of argument, then I only need to watch one Marvel film or read one book. I
would argue that anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you've watched one Marvel, you have watched them all.
We're all on the same team tonight. That's how I win every single time. I just make sure I'm on whatever team I know is going to win.
There we go.
So from my perspective,
go for it, Dojo.
Okay, thank you. From my perspective, as hashtag just a writer, as I look at what I want to create, after having read comic books for over 50 years now, I feel like pretty much every story has been told. And yes, there's been some nuance, there's been a little bit of variation. And what's important, of course, because this is a visual medium, is we need to look at how can this be told and shown in a different way. For example, my character's Siamese. A few people have come to me and said, so basically it's Catwoman twice. Well, yeah, visually you can see that there's some similarities there. They're wearing a cat suit after all, but you'll
A
find that
cat so
even
nice you drew her twice.
there you go. Double the. No, I better not say that.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.
I'll censor that. But if you look at Catwoman and say that my characters are a ripoff, you'd have to say that Catwoman herself is a ripoff of Miss Fury before her. And I disagree, though. It's not a ripoff. It's just another way of telling a story. The same story, though. You know, it, it all depends on what you have the characters do and react to their characterization. But I still feel the story has already been told.
Interesting. So there is a few lines of thoughts, and everyone's already kind of dipping their toes into caveats for their arguments. So I'm going to start with mine. There was a couple of guys that decided to look at the music industry and figure out if certain songs, which had small types of riffs in them, could legitimately be considered ripping off another song. And so they actually mathematically went through all the sampling, every single type of sound and riff and beat and tempo. And I mean, I'm not a music guy, so whatever the words are, someone else would be able to describe it better. But basically they cataloged every single aspect of every single sound that could possibly be made. And they came up with a a limited version of every single type of sound. So every single song, every single beat, and every single section of any type of music is found within that catalog that they made. Mm-hmm. And so they took it and they uploaded it. So now nobody can actually sue anybody else over anything that hasn't yet been used from that catalog, because now they are giving it as free to use and they own it basically. So they found that there was a limit to the sounds that could be composed in music. They had a lot of free time. And not a lot of free time. It was tedious work, but I think they let computers do it for them. So these were, I think, more nerds than sound guys. Although some of the best nerds are the best musicians. I mean, if you look at Rush, for example. But
that's a good example, actually.
Yeah. Well, those guys were just nerds in their basement that just figured everything out that they could. That they could do with their instruments, musical instruments. The concept of there being a limited way for us to express ourselves isn't outside of the realm of possibility. That's my caveat. However, when we think about everything that we know, if we could put that into a ball, everything that we know, if we could put that into a ball, then outside the ball, we have everything that we don't know. And everything outside the ball is significantly bigger. And if we learn one more thing, the ball grows a little bit. Mm-hmm. So what this ends up doing, and so what you have is the ball of everything that we know. On the outside of that ball is the questions of everything that we know we still need to ask. And because this universe is an unlimited source of information that we haven't been able to tap into everything yet, every time that ball grows a little bit, the more that we know actually creates more that we don't know. Because now we have more questions, because now the surface of the ball is actually larger. There's more surface area on the ball. Every time we learn something, every time that grows just a little bit more, exponentially outside of that, our questions reach out into more areas that we don't know. So the limit of everything that we don't know actually just continues to grow. So the idea that every story is told or every song has been made, even though we can sometimes mathematically break it down into the parts of what can be constructed from it, what we can construct continuously grows because we have more questions to ask. And as we understand human behavior, as we understand why we do the things we do, as we understand what people are looking for, as we understand what people are lacking, as we understand how our world is needing stories, we can always find new stories to tell.
That being the case, by the way, that was very deep. That being the case, though, let's talk about things like the Iliad or Gilgamesh or stories that you can go back. You can talk about mythology. You can talk about even the parables found in the Christian Bible. The story of the hero's journey has long been the story arc that's been used for centuries. So with that in mind, we are simply telling the same story, perhaps with new information, but the story remains the same. The arc of the hero's journey.
That in itself is only one example of what type of story can be told. So, I mean, like, as far as that being used repeatedly, I mean, we have a 4-chord song, right? So the 4-chord song, going back to my music analogy, the 4-chord song can literally play 80% of the top 40 hits in the last 50 years. That doesn't mean that the 4-chord song is the limit of what music can be.
Right. That's why we have both Under Pressure and Ice Ice Baby.
There you go. Right? And
oh my gosh.
So the hero's journey, the idea of you have a character who is comfortable, is now taken out of that comfort level, has to, in his journey, finds out that he's underskilled, has to find a way to gain new skills, overcomes his adversity, and then again moves into a aspect of being comfortable. That is one story. That's a story that we all live through constantly throughout our lives, which is why it resonates so well, we've heard it so many times that we end up adopting that. It's almost muscle memory to adopt that story as we go to write something. However, when people step out of the construct of the 4-chord song, we sometimes get some amazing music, stuff that is way better than whatever is being promoted. And when we go to our stories and we want more than 3 chords in the truth, we end up with some amazing stories. Not everything has to be Pocahontas, Fern Gully, Dances with Wolves, Avatar, right? The way that Cameron constructed all that,
accurate.
the way that Cameron constructed that has made it like one of the things that he's leaning into is that people will find it familiar enough to want to be a part of that journey again. And I think because people have a sense of failure in so many aspects of their lives, we want to go back to things that are familiar, that seem like we can overcome the problems if we can just get new skills. But that's not even a true story. There are certain things that we simply can't overcome, no matter what kind of skills we have. There are aspects of grief, aspects of wealth, aspects of trying to build family. There are aspects of so many things in our life that we never overcome, and we learn to live with and carry failure with us. There's a whole range of stories in all of that that do not fit the hero structure.
Well, they may not, but at the same time, keep in mind that what you just described then is man against nature, man against man against other people. You know what I mean? It's like every one of those things that you just listed as one of our failures or one of our hurdles that we just can't get past is explained by one of those man against story arcs.
Absolutely. And the way that we end up constructing those stories end up being all in the details of how that story ends up being received. Because ultimately, what we end up going for is how the story ends up resonating with people. The other aspect that comes from being able to build a story is when it's received, it can be received differently depending upon who's reading it, what stage of life they're in, and what kind of conflicts they're in. So in and of itself, the multiple variations of stories end up having multiple variations of resonating, which means that we have now it could be mathematically, absolutely 100% mathematically, there could be a limit, but it becomes a compounding amount of storytelling that ends up going between the teller and the listener.
Josh, when it comes to being somebody who's capable of telling the story and drawing it, do you see any synergy there that makes the story something unique? Or do you stand by the fact that the story's been told, I'm just drawing it with a different perspective now?
Well, one thing I want to say is, just because you say, if you take the position that every story's been told, I don't see that as a negative. Like, I see that as a positive, because it's like, okay, here's what we've got. Now there's room for infinite variety within those, what was it, 7 structures? And people write those without thinking about what those structures are. So, so you can they can crisscross or overlap or whatever. And I think the hero's journey doesn't get old because everyone needs that story, because everyone's the hero of their own story. So everyone needs to relate to that, so I know some people get tired of, it's just another hero's quest or whatever. But, the next generation needs that too. Everyone needs that story, right? As far as visually, like with superheroes, if you're a fan of superheroes, obviously they're all derivative of each other. The excitement comes from seeing the variations, right? So this hero has this powers and he has this type of villain or this type of sidekick or this origin. They're all following the basic framework in a sense, but I guess again, what makes it interesting is seeing the perspectives and what people can do with those templates, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So again, I don't think it's a negative to say every story has been told, because I see it as it's like we only see so many colors, right? There's only so many colors in the rainbow, but within those colors there's infinite shades in between. So that's how I would
and there are so many colors, and there are animals and insects that are actually able to see into those additional spectrums, right? This is actually a really great comment from Kiss, and he had that previously as well. I think he was saying that. I forget the guy's name. It was like Peter or Poland or something like that. The guy came up with it in the 1800s, the idea that there's only 36 dramatic situations. But I read it 1,000 years ago, and really interesting stuff. An aspect of what he was pulling from, this Peter guy, I should actually look it up. But
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, thank you very much, Brian. I almost called you Peter. Everyone's Peter today. The interesting aspect from that is he pulled a lot of that stuff from scripture, especially since during that time, of course, that was a heavy influence for everybody. But in my earlier life as well, I was part of the Christian community, read a lot of the Bible, and I would consider that the Bible actually gave me my strongest foundation in understanding people and characters, and that has transitioned into the writing and how I just view story structure and everything as well. Because a lot of our stories, and actually a lot of stories from the Bible, not to get into any theological debate, seem to come from older stories as well. And this idea of things repeating, like even if you were to go like the Magnificent Seven and the Seven Samurai and Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, there are certain themes that people like to hear and pull out. And I think that is a good thing. I think the fact that that resonates with people shows aspects of where they want their life to improve, and also where they think their life is good, and they want to celebrate that, right? And so I think too, our stories are meant to give us ways to conquer problems. So the idea is that a lot of the shit that we have to go through is too big for us to understand. A lot of the problems that are out there are too significant, not too significant, too large for any of us to fully grasp, to wrap our head around, and to be able to accomplish any change in it. However, when we look at stories, especially with characters like the one lone survivor battling against whatever significant opposition they're going against, I think people take a lot of comfort and able to look at that and feel, okay, maybe I just need to worry about what I can control, right? And when it comes to seeing characters battle against problems that are too big for them, they also see in that the people, a lot of the times in those stories, the people they bring around them in order to assist them. The idea of family comes out in those stories a lot. Community, right? It's team, like Remember the Titans. It's all about bringing the team together despite the differences that they have. And then instead of the problem being how do we beat the other team, it becomes how do we become a stronger community. And so these themes that we keep pulling out over and over and over again, I think are potentially the most important aspect of our storytelling. And we should have those repeated over and over and over again. However, we need to be entertained by this shit too. So we have to create ways to ensure that we are finding new ways to tell those themes.
Well, one of the great things about a comment you made earlier, it sounds like I'm taking your side, and that's when you're talking about the ball of knowledge. And the thing is, when we learn new things, we are now able to tell these same stories with new pieces of information. Like you wouldn't have gotten something like Joe Catapano's Star Circuit, 50 years ago, because the idea of the AIs riding motorcycles and all that would have been, beyond our imagination, I think. So as we learn new things and develop technology and all that, the way we tell our stories can be something new and fantastic, even if we're telling a story that had already existed. And I looked it up for you, Bandito. It's the 36 dramatic situations as a descriptive list, which was first proposed by, I think it's Georges Poulty in 1895.
Poultice.
It's on screen. Poulty.
Oh, it's on screen. Oh, yes.
Yep.
Perfect.
And then Cider Hype, thanks for being here, by the way, has a great comment too. It's not about being new, it's about being you. Writers, especially new writers, can get overwhelmed thinking their work needs to change the course of human history, forgetting time judges that, not us.
Yeah, that's very accurate. I mean, like, the best thing that we can bring to any story, of course, is the way that we connect with the audience, right? And oftentimes the things, because writers do tend to write problems that they've gone through into their stuff, because we understand that stuff. It's very real to us. We can create a very understandable and relatable experience with that. The best thing you can bring is, your own story, which, not your own story, sorry. The best thing you can do is find ways to relate to the audience. And that does come down to a very individual, it comes down to the individual writer, which actually, again, creates new stories.
You know, a little while ago, Bandito, you were dangerously on the precipice of saying that the reader owns the story, which is something we talked about a week or two ago.
I think it's 50-50. I think this is why fandoms get so irate when, the IP transfers over to somebody else who just like inserts their Star Trek fan fiction into it or something.
Right.
And, but I really believe all of it is 50-50. I think that the audience does get ownership of a lot of stuff. They don't have the responsibility of it, and they don't have the, ownership, like they don't have the rights, the financial rights to it. But I think that there's, the ownership is 50-50, and it's up to the creators or the owners of the IP to honor that. And I mean, they don't have any obligation to honor it, but obviously we've seen the fallout from that.
Yeah. Cider Hype has another great point here. The tradition since the time of stories in caves around campfires has been to take personal truth and mix it with natural myth. That's something you touched on just a minute ago. And that's every tall tale started with a real event, no matter how mundane. Yeah, absolutely. As you said, when you inject your own experiences into it, that's one of the ways that the story that's been told before can be made interesting, because now a new perspective has been provided.
I have a wheezy cat. He's picked up some asthma, I think.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
So he comes up and he sounds incredibly pitiful. And wants to take your attention.
But yeah, that stands on us saying that, not every story has been written yet, because it takes those nuances, those personal independent stories that make them unique. And that, with as many people as that walk this planet, I mean, that's, stories to the nth degree that could just have different outcomes, even though the structure is the same. I mean, in Western civilization, the hero's journey, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the protagonist is reluctant to take on the hero's journey. Whereas in the East, they're just full blown. Yeah, let's do this. It's my destiny. They fully believe that when the journey calls, it is time for you to leave home and go out and take on the call.
That's something that I've talked about quite a bit in Western movies, for example. It seems like the main protagonist of many of our movies, is the hero who's off the grid, who thinks they've retired. I'm too old for this stuff. Yep. They're really hard to reach, and somebody in need of their help goes and finds them in some remote place and convinces them to come back to the heroism.
That's every Wolverine film, right?
Wolverine, anything that Jason Statham has ever been in, Will Smith, I mean, they're all.
But we love that story. We love the idea of, because men kind of like solitude to some degree.
Yeah.
And I guess varying degrees. And so the idea of us disappearing, I think, and having somebody come back and being like, we absolutely you're the only person that can solve this problem. We need you back, I think.
That's the other thing that men like, is to be needed.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, that's like the two biggest power fantasies for men.
Well, there's another truth in that though too, where don't they say, like the best leaders are the one who don't want to lead. The people who crave power, who crave that position, are usually end up being the worst.
Oh yeah.
So like so the person who doesn't want the thing, even though they're fully capable, that's in a way it's the ideal hero, right?
Yeah, 100%. I've always said that our politicians are not our best and brightest. Our best and brightest go on to be scientists and nuclear physicists and
or just raise families,
doctors. And politicians are our most ambitious. That's the skill that they
politicians are lawyers, man.
Yeah.
Oh, check this one. Ciderhead's bringing the wisdom. Amazon Studios put out a geezer teaser last year called Samaritan. It stars Sylvester Stallone. Great story about a hero regaining his sense of purpose. that kind of touches on the one who's been, sought after as the only one who can solve a situation. But yeah, regaining a sense of purpose is another great story arc. And when I say story arc, it reminds me, when you're talking about the structure is the same, the stories are all different. It sounds like what we've got here is, and I'm not saying this, against anyone, but it sounds like we've got a whole bunch of semantics going on where we're all saying very similar things, trying to be on opposite sides of this story. And I think Blue would point to this being false bifurcation.
Yeah, well, Blue's
not
not here
wrong.
right now, so he doesn't get to have a say. I think it's interesting too, as our stories have kind of moved. Oh my goodness, sorry, I swallowed.
His cat gave him his
Whew.
asthma.
Yeah.
There you go. I think it's interesting as our stories have progressed. We went from our hero finding the going out to find the mentor in order to improve his skills, to the stories actually being now about the mentors. So like we have Unforgiven, we have the new Rocky franchise, we have oh my goodness, sorry, I'm going to fix this problem.
I think while he's doing that, we've got another comment from Cider Hype, which furthers, I believe, Bandito's point. The story being called back to action also evokes like George Washington returning to the Constitutional Convention after the war, even after a lifetime of self-sacrifice. So, he was brought back to the fold, if you will. Again, regaining a sense of purpose and, to lead the nation. What else does he say here? Unlike most other cultures on Earth, we enjoy the story of the underdog, the unlikely hero that triumphs against all odds. Most other cultures prefer a godlike hero doing godlike things. That kind of sounds like a lot of the things I see in manga. They are so overpowered,
and yet they still have a burden and a enemy that's just as powerful that could take them down. The opposition is still just as much a struggle to overcome, even though they do have godlike powers. I think when he was talking about America enjoying the story of the underdog, I think that harkens back to Americans still being young. I think that has to do with us still thinking that we were the underdog, even though technically we're not anymore.
More than technically.
Well, we'll see if we'll be talking Chinese in a couple of years or not.
Right. I think that Firefly had it right, where we'll be learning English and Chinese.
Josh,
it looked like you were about to say something.
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh no, I was just laughing. No, I didn't hear everything.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
You know what, guys? We are coming up on 20 minutes to the top of the hour. So let's take some time now to have a look at what Josh has written, the story he's written in T-Bird Throttle. So Josh, to let you know, I have it on screen here for you. What I'll do is I have it, sorry, let me find there we are. Here's the campaign. And we can have a look at this however you'd like. If you'd like us to look at the trailer, if you want to talk about the tiers or the main part of the book, however you'd like to, you be the driver and I'll just sort of be the person at the wheel.
Okay. Yeah, this is T-Bird Throttle versus the Ape Men. This is technically the 5th chapter in the story. The previous 4 are collectively called T-Bird Throttle versus the Moon Men. I crowdfunded those each individually, but they are part of this campaign as if you want to scroll down, as a trade paperback. So
the catch-up tier?
Yeah, so right here, this is just kind of the background and stuff. This is telling you who the characters are, where they're at in the story.
Okay.
Go down a little bit further.
This right here, right?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's the trade paperback. It's like over 250 pages, and you can read the first 60 pages, which is the first chapter, for free, just by clicking the link there. So it should give you a pretty good idea of what the story's like and if you like it or not. And then below that, there's a few preview pages.
That banner on that cover needs to be a poster itself. I say this on every campaign. There's at least one cover that needs to be a poster, and that's it.
This here?
Yes.
Yes.
I would love that.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, this one here is a pretty good one as well. And this was a splash page inside the book.
Right. Yeah, so that's just a few sample pages to check out there. And then if you keep going, there's just a blurb about sort of what the book's about, a little bit about me.
Oh.
And then it gets into the perks.
Okay, yeah, let's have a look at that. You get with T-Bird Throttle versus the Ape Men. If you back that, it's 60 plus pages, an all new chapter. And tell us about the construction of the book itself. Like the pages, are they going to be similar to the 4 issues I have of versus the Moon Men, or?
If you have the newsprint, no. If these are going to be glossy paper.
Oh, okay. Like graphic novel. Okay.
Yeah, and the Ape Men book is probably going to be perfect bound as well.
Nice.
Like I say 60 plus. I don't know for sure exactly how many pages it's going to end up being, but it's probably going to be, because I think that my printer can only do 60, 64 pages saddle stitch. So it more than likely is going to end up being over that, and it'll have to be perfect bound.
You know, I think that even books that are only 48 pages, if you can get it perfect bound, I don't know. I personally prefer that.
It is nice. It's just more expensive. But
yeah, yes,
yeah.
this is true.
Yes.
And then here's the catch-up tier where you get, oh, wait a minute. This is books 1 through 4 and the issue 0 prologue?
Yes, the issue 0 prologue is also part. It's in, if you have the alternative versions, it's in the issue 1. If you have
okay.
issue 1.
All right. I still like the idea of getting this, though. Blue Samurai Zero, one of our co-hosts who couldn't be here tonight, he said that he ordered the trade. This is what we're looking at right now, despite the fact he already had all the floppies. And you know, that's definitely a way to support Josh and his efforts to make this an ongoing, concern. Make this this storyline continue. Speaking of which, Josh, you said this is chapter 5. Will the versus the Ape Man story arc also be 4 issues or 4?
No, this is a standalone.
Oh, okay.
And when I say standalone, I don't mean it's like inconsequential. It doesn't matter. Like, it's still very much part of. It's a very important story. This chapter just happens to be one part as opposed to 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of the characters from the first 4 issues are present again.
Absolutely, yes. Everyone's story will be continued.
And then we've got variant covers. This is interesting. The blackout cover starring Mitch. This is a neat way of using, the negative space. I like that. He did that for Emily as well. I
like silhouette shots.
What does that say? IO Bled.
This is something that's, if you've read the story, you may know what this is about. I mean, it's something that's part. The thing about T-Bird, it's got its own mythology, its own it's like a parallel Earth, right? It's got its own history, its own religion and stuff. So in this world, Io would be essentially their version of Jesus, and Iwaz would be basically their Satan. So this is signifying something that's happening within the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got a little back shot of Amy there. That's always good.
Nice dump truck.
TNA cells. We like the TNA or the AAT. Sorry. Oh, and you can get all of them for a discount if you do that. Very nice. Oh, there's also a really.
I'm doing commissions, a limited number. I did 10 and they all sold out, and then I added 5 more, and I think there's still a few left of those. So,
okay. So FOMO, jump on that, folks, if you like these 9x12 commissions. And when he says bust, he's serious. Take a look. I know what it means. It means like mid shoulders up. I get it. We have original cover art. Is that still available? Let's have a look here.
No, I think all the original art pieces are taken.
Boo!
They got grabbed up.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Josh, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, damn. That was a great deal too. $300. Shoot.
Giving them
no
away.
wonder they got grabbed up. And these are all the ones that were taken. Oh, you got stretch goals? All right. So at $13,000, all physical backers receive a pinup trading card This one here.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Very
King Kong
nice.
homage. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, Faye is tied to the. Yep.
Yeah.
And then some testimonials here.
Right.
Very true. So what we'll do now is well, first of all, let's see. We've got a goal of 12,000. You're 71% there with 11 days left. Now, is this the first 30 days?
Yes.
Okay. So I assume whether or not you make it to your goal of 12,000, you'll still extend the next 30. Is that accurate?
If I hit the goal, I usually don't extend it 30 more days. I'll do like 2 weeks in
Oh,
demand.
okay. Do
Yeah.
another 2
This-
weeks.
Yeah, just because like I don't like letting it sit out there forever, and because I like to finalize my numbers really soon and like have that all squared away.
Right.
Like if it sits there, it keeps it'll drive me crazy having to keep adjusting. So yeah, I don't know. I just like to make sure I like to just figure everything out, and get it locked away. So
Okay. Now, whether you extend or just go 2 weeks, whether you go to the next 30, depending on how you feel,
Right.
will you go into in demand? Or is that
well, that's what I was talking about is in demand.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
if I don't fund, I may go another 30 days. I haven't decided yet.
Gotcha.
I'm hoping,
Okay.
but if I do fund, it'll probably be the 2 weeks. In
So
demand.
141 backers is a pretty good start. I think that largely what's going on here is you've got an affordable price point. So let's look at that. You've got the digital version. Again, folks, it's 60 pages, is $15. And that's for people who either prefer to have it on their mobile devices or are overseas and don't want to pay shipping. You've got, let me go here. Sorry. Now, here's what I was talking about. 60 pages, $20 for the physical book. That's a good price point.
That includes shipping too.
That includes shipping.
Yeah.
Dude.
Damn.
Yeah, ships worldwide. That's phenomenal.
Not if it's international, there's an extra cost, but for domestic, there's no shipping.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, I get you.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, international shipping can kill you.
Yes.
I know on my first campaign, Siamese, I broke even, but that was because of the shipping. It was costing me like $75 to send things to Australia and South Africa and the Netherlands. And it was like, well, I certainly didn't charge them $75, and I'm not going to try to go back to them
Right.
now because that would be horrible customer service. So I had to eat that, and that really ate into any profit I was making. But that's
Yeah.
okay. Breaking even, I'm okay with breaking even. It'd be great to make some money to put toward the next campaign, but I would be doing this even if I wasn't making any money. In fact, before I did crowdfunding, I had been publishing since 2014. So this is something that I can tell that you too love doing this. You've been at it for 20 years. You've worked for other companies. Oh yeah. How does it feel to be your own boss?
Well, in some ways, I always have been. Like I have, someone else is always, was publishing my work, but I was always still writing everything, deciding everything. I just doing a few extra steps. But so, it's to me, this was just the natural evolution of where I was headed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 7 people have claimed all covers plus the collected edition. So we're talking the 60-page book, all of the variant covers with the blackouts, and the catch-up tier. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the good things about doing this so long is that you pick up a few very dedicated fans, which I'm very thankful for, who just kind of want everything,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, those super backers are a blessing.
Yeah.
I had a couple who got the ultimate kitty box on my Siamese campaign. Gotta love them. Now, we have some time. Your trailer for this book really is unique. It really struck me when I played this before we went on air, and I was like, wow, that's not at all what I expected. So I'll shut up and I'll play the trailer so people will see what I mean.
All right.
And there you have it. Talk about a teaser. I mean, it's like that brings so many questions to mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, the bad thing is that I've had a few people like family members who don't necessarily follow everything I do. They're like, "You're making a movie?" I was like, "No, I'm not making a movie. This is just it was
Right.
just a fun teaser for the book." So
Okay.
yeah.
So after fending off the invasion of the Moon, Mitch Maddox has finally returned to the role of T-Bird, heroic defender of Centennial City. But no good deed goes unpunished. Oh, I love that colloquialism. You bet. 1 year later, after battling endless lawsuits, government bureaucracy, and media scrutiny, Mitch, Emily, and Amy are in desperate need of a vacation. But deep in the heart of Skookum Forest, something ancient has awakened, and its sights are set on Team T-Bird. Faiths will be tested and destinies revealed in the epic clash of T-Bird and Throttle versus the Ape Men. Yeah, I'm sold. I try to make that sound very dramatic because I think it's going to be. I think I told Blue before the show that I read through all 4 of those first books, which was 80 pages, and then 3 of them at 72 pages nonstop. I read the whole thing because I couldn't put it down. The only reason I had to put one down is because I was opening the next one. So yeah, and it was amazing that I had that much time uninterrupted, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's I love the storyline. I love the characters. I like your art. Despite the fact that it's more cartoony than I normally like. I like more realistic. I love your style. There's something about it that it harkens back again, like I said about the newsprint, it harkens back to when I started collecting, and nostalgia is very important.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It reminds me of the late 90s, early 2000s cartoons I grew up on. I love it.
I can see some of that. Some of the facial expressions and all that kind of remind me of the art in Batman Beyond, for example.
Yep.
Right.
All of it feels like a comfy throwback. That you just kind of want to wrap around like a warm blanket on Saturday morning as you eat your Cheerios and watch morning cartoons.
That's right.
Bruce Timm is a very big influence, so I appreciate that.
I could see that. Yep.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover about this book, or anything in the pipeline that you want to tell us about coming up next?
Let's see. So yeah, this year marks 20 years that I've been doing this. So it's technically the 20th anniversary of my first book, Dead at 17. So after I do this, I'm probably looking at doing like a revival of that, or some kind of anniversary special or something to that effect.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, will this be reprinted on newsprint down the line, or is this your one and only chance to get T-Bird and Throttle versus the Ape Men?
Hasn't been decided yet. I mean, Peter, Alterna says, the door's always open. So once I get this done and out and everyone has it, then we will talk about that and see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because there are completist collectors, myself included, that would continue to buy them, even though I've already read the story. I want to get the next version of them. I'm having trouble. Like with Michael Bancroft, he's got that very, very limited edition.
He is trouble, that guy. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's trouble. He's got that limited edition variant cover that you can only win in a certain circumstance. And I'm like, yes, but I need to get one. He's like, well, but you'll need to win it. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. So yeah, if you do continue and take it to Alterna, let me know, or I'll be watching for it for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Well, Bandito, let's turn this back to you then for your final thoughts on every story has already been written.
Final thoughts now in stereo.
Right.
Well, I think it's always a great topic, and I mean the hashtag Just a Writer comes up often, and I love the arguments always seem to implode on themselves, no matter which side you want to take. The limits of something we are always trying to define, or others are trying to define for us. create a structure around it, and if given the opportunity, make as much money as possible, from those limits, setting up velvet ropes to funnel audiences along the path that's marked out. But consistently and constantly, we have people, remarkable or not, in and of themselves, step over the boundaries and find a new path, new directions to take in every aspect of our lives. When it comes to stories told, sometimes we enjoy walking within the velvet ropes. They are comfortable and familiar. But we are unable to stop the influx of information, entertainment, and influence of all things in our culture. There might be a limit to the number of stories, number of situations, number of characters we can write, but the sheer volume of combinations gives us the opportunity to hop over the velvet rope anytime we want. And when a reader does the same, following us, they have a new experience. Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to create. As creators, we are constantly looking for the holes in entertainment, markets that are untapped, needs that are unmet, and stories that are needing to be told. This is truly what we do. We're not looking for untold stories, but the stories that are needing to be told.
All right, and that speaks a lot to those people who are bibliophiles and have this to say.
My brother has a sword, and I have my mind, and a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone. That's why I read so much.
So very true.
So what I'd like to do now is, first of all, of course, thank you, Josh, for being on the show, for having this debate with us. I hope you had a good time, and you'll be back with us when you come up with your next book, hopefully that anniversary book you're talking about.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. I had a good time. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, of course, to Jake and SmilingBandito for being here to help with this debate. We missed you, Blue. Hope to see you back next week. And, of course, to all of the folks who are in the chat and who will watch this on the replay, because I know there's a lot of great shows. So we're happy that you're here or come back to see us on the replay. We appreciate the time that you spend with us, and your input is always invaluable. So with that, hope to see you next week on Incendiary.